Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Estoril once more for round 4 this time of the TCR International Series. We're about 30 kilometers north of Lisbon. Beautiful, beautiful day. 18 degrees air temperature, the track soaring to 35 degrees, and that is providing a bit of a challenge for our TCR competitors, having to try and deal with their tyres in these front-wheel drive machines. Race 2 is a reverse grid from top 10 in qualifying, and therefore newbie Loris Huysmans will take the pole position. Had a great fight with Pepe Arreola in race 1, and he is our pole man. 17 car entry list for this race in Estoril, with 5 different models of car. The Volkswagens of Komini, Vene, Kajaya and Grashov. Seat and Honda also represented. And then one car for Luca Rangoni in the Subaru and Michele Ceruti in the Alfa Romeo Giulietta. Most popular make, Seat. The most successful brand, Seat. So far, 16 wins in the 1.5 years of the TCR International Series. There is David Kajaya, a bit of a star in race 2 in Bahrain. Just missed the podium, in fact. And he'll be hoping to do something similar, but starts 11. After the first race, this is how the points look. Pepe Arreola and Gianni Morbidelli share the spoils at the top with James Nash and Sergei Afanasiev. Dusan Volkovic dropped down to 5th after only scoring 1 solitary point. Whereas Mato Homola moved up to 8th. Jean-Carl Venet got himself on the board in 7th position after finishing P2 ahead of his championship-winning teammate, Stefano Comini. Kevin Gleeson still yet to get off the mark in his Honda. Had a dreadful start to the season and a dreadful race 1 as well. There is Pepe Arreola. He struggled quite a lot in race 1. Starts P3 though on the grid here. Started 8th in race 1 and really didn't make any progress. Was able to fight with Loris Huysmans, but he's carrying 30 kilos more than Huysmans thanks to success ballast. Stefano Comini is 30 kilos less in his Volkswagen. A slight change in the balance of performance for this weekend, and it's certainly proved to help him because he and teammate had a double podium for Leopold Racing and for Volkswagen. There is James Nash, exactly. Focus forward, P2, clear track ahead of him. He'll have the outside line for the first corner with Loris Huysmans beside him. Now, Nash, second in the championship coming into this weekend, therefore carries 20 extra kilos because of that success. Returning to front-wheel drive racing after becoming independent World Touring Car Champion a few years ago. Then he went off and raced for Audi WRT in the Blancpain series. And we saw him return to front-wheel drive in Macau at the end of the year, end of last year, in the TCR International Series. Here is the circuit, 4.2 kilometers in length, around about 13 turns. We've got a 15-lap offering for you. Some long corners to really punish those front wheels, especially the front left. Designed in 1974, raced in Formula 1 from 84 to 96. An old school race circuit, and that is what every one of these 17 drivers in TCR have been enthusing about. Here is the grid then. Huysmans and Nash on the front row. Arreola has Aku Penelin alongside him, the first of the Hondas. And then we have Afanasiev and Comini, Vene, Morbidelli in 8th position. Equal now at the front of the field on points. And then down to 9th spot is Mato Homola and Attila Tassi. Now Homola should have been on 10th position, but we've had 2 drivers drop to the back of the field for breaking Parc Ferme regulations. They are, well, Dusan Volkovic is the back of the grid, dint of not qualifying at all. Kevin Gleeson out of Parc Ferme because he had an electronics problem, and they've changed the loom on that car. Luca Rangoni in the Subaru had steering issues, and therefore he dropped out of Parc Ferme as well. And to be fair to the Subaru and to the Alfa Romeo teams, it's kind of a similar story for both of them, still developing the car a lot, learning about the car a lot, and now the task in the formation lap is to get heat into those tyres. 35 degrees, far hotter track temperature than any of these drivers and teams have been used to throughout their week here. They were testing on Wednesday, and it was kind of overcast and a bit cold, and only the sun has come out over the weekend, and it's got hotter and hotter and hotter. Beautiful day now for hanging out outside and having a few glasses of your favourite Portuguese wine, but not necessarily what the teams and drivers are used to. And you can see how aggressive they are trying to get temperature into the tyres, because they are hard compound Michelin, and those rear wheels obviously just are there to be towed along by the front wheel drive and steering, and therefore it's all about chucking your car sideways in the warm-up laps. Oriola demonstrating perfectly. Hard braking to get the temperature in the brakes in the front wheels, but you can't do that with the rear wheels because the brakes are so small, and therefore you do have to throw these cars from left to right to left to right to start working the sidewalls of the rears, and then hope that you've got enough in them when you get down to the first corner. Mikhail Grashiev getting very, very sideways. And there are some squeaky bum moments when you're throwing the car from left to right like that. Certainly grabs your attention. It's been a few hours wait since race one. About 4 hours for the teams and drivers to be hanging around. Parc ferme conditions for the majority of the teams between race one and race two, so no work for the mechanics to do. And the drivers also, that nervous tension building. Now, Kevin Gleeson has done 1 lap of racing around Estoril. Didn't do a lot of laps in Bahrain. He'll be hoping that his car is feeling a lot better. It was a electronics problem which meant a misfire in the engine. Eventually they ended up changing the full loom of that car, which took a good period of time. Big slide from one of our Lucor drivers. That's part of course at warm-up and formation laps. So Gleeson should have a car now that is working for him, and hopefully he'll want to improve on his 13th in Bahrain, which is his best result this year. Took a win, took 2 wins last year, took a pole position in Salzburg as well. Not a huge amount of experience in front-wheel drive, just the 1 season in TCR last season for Gleeson, 5th in the championship by the end. Stayed in the same team, West Coast Racing, but wants to get on the board in terms of points here. For someone like Gleeson, it's all about the racing. For Luca Rangoni and for Michele Cerruti, it's all about development. The Alfa in race 1 had a problem with the gear shift, again electronics, and therefore she had her system reset basically in the pits, and she was able to complete the race and didn't break Parc ferme regulations, so she will take up her grid spot. But there is Gleeson and Rangoni at the back of the field, the last 2 cars to form up, who did break Parc ferme. Also watch out for Dusan Borkovic. Big changes in the setup of the B3 racing teams to preserve their tyres and make sure they last a little longer. Green flag at the back of the field, and we are getting ready to go racing here in Estoril. Revs rise and away we go. A good start. So one of the from Loris Huismans, who tries to cover the inside line. Aku Pelnin is trying to get on the inside of James Nash, who sits on the inside line. Jean Calvinet's made a good start, as has Stefano Camini. Camini go around the outside into turn 1. He's going to be surely bulked by that, and Nash it is who leads going through turn 2 then. Jean Calvinet has the inside line on Stefano Camini and takes 2nd position. Camini slots into 3rd, but they're still side by side. And great watching from Pepe Oriola, who brakes hard and slides himself into turn 4. A bit of contact between the 2 Volkswagens. Aku Pelnin has been unceremoniously shuffled back, as has Loris Huismans. Where is Huismans, in fact? I'm not sure he's even made it round the first corner, according to the telemetry. Oriola ahead of Afanasiev. The cars go through shot, and our pole man is nowhere to be seen. There is Loris Huismans. Oh, what disaster for the Dutchman. He's obviously had contact with somebody through the first turn, and his Seat is broken on him. round to the second half of the lap then. Dusan Borkovic crawling over the back of his teammate, trying to make up another position. It's Nash who leads from Comedy and Vernet. It's going to be a great weekend for the Volkswagens if it stays like this. Borkovic having to go on the defensive from Kevin Gleeson, but he's trying to get past Attila Tassi and Matto Homola as well. The Alfa Romeo hasn't made a very good start. It's the back of the field. The Subaru ahead of it. Francisco Moura, the Portuguese driver, the local man, ahead of them. Big old slide from Matto Homola. That car is going to be even more rear wheel happy in these first opening laps because they're trying to preserve the tyres for the end of the race. So Borkovic and Matto Homola with a different setup because their car really went off at the end of race one. Here comes teammates side by side. Kajaya up the inside of Grashov. And that was a nice smooth move. Pellenin got shuffled back as well, didn't he? He's in 7th position, just behind his teammate Morbidelli in 6th. Now, one of the things that we spoke to Oriola about on our Facebook Live show just before we got here was team orders within the Lukoil Bamboo team, that he called it anyway. And he said there's absolutely no touching between the 3 Lukoil cars, which is understandable, to be fair. But it does mean that in race one he felt he couldn't attack his teammate ahead of him, which I think was James Nash at the time, because it's too hard to pass around this circuit. Oh, Heiserman's made a horrible start. Absolutely did not get across off the line at all. Neither did Homola. Meanwhile, look at that from is that Pellenin on the outside? Oh, Heiserman's may have had a problem straight off the line. I didn't see that on the inside, but he's pulled off almost as though it was a drive shaft, or maybe the wheel wasn't on properly. I'm going to guess on drive shaft for Heiserman's, because it just didn't pull off the line at all, did it? Dumped the clutch and no drive whatsoever. Battle for 5th we're watching between Sergei Afanasiev, Gianni Morbidelli behind him, equal at the top of the standings on points with Oriola, and then Aku Pellenin behind him. Honda's complaining about top speed. Oh, and there's one of the B3 racing cars going into the pits in the back of the shot. Who is that? Is it Borkovic continuing his awful weekend? It is Borkovic in the pits as his teammate goes up the inside for 9th position. Homola takes that from Grashov. And Attila Tassi behind him, but Borkovic, one of the favourites coming into this season, is going to have 0 points at the end of the weekend. Tassi attacks Grashov and gets the position. So Tassi moves into the points. Grashov attacks back, bit of a shove on the exit of the corner. Attila not getting the drive, a 16-year-old Hungarian driver. Not a lot of experience. Having only, 16, you don't have as many years of experience upon you in touring car racing. Didn't race in Bahrain, and oh dearie me, is that an overheating issue for Dusan Borkovic? Lots of smoke coming from the radiator area. James Nash is checked out at the front of the field. 2nd in the championship coming into the weekend. Didn't score very many points in race one. Really struggled in qualifying. Said his car didn't feel like it had done in testing during the week. But now in 2nd race, he's off and away. He's got 2 Volkswagens behind him, but they are not making any inroads on him whatsoever. And actually the logjam seems to be behind Pepe Oriola, who is really struggling. Now, if the rules still exist that he was talking to me about with Afanasiev, as we see a replay of Tassi's beautiful move down the inside of Grashov, but he then gets a little bit deep, and Grashov is able to then ditch hook and give him a smack on the exit of the turn, wheel to wheel though, and hopefully not too much damage. But Afanasiev, if he follows the same rules as Oriola was doing in race one, will not really feel comfortable to attack his teammate Oriola ahead of him, and therefore will be under pressure from Morbidelli. But here comes Afanasiev down the inside line. Easy pass from the Russian, and he's able to claim the track position as well, although he runs a little bit deep. And now Oriola is not quite close enough, is actually defending from Morbidelli. What on earth is going on with Oriola's car? She's got no pace whatsoever. Looks very tail happy under braking. Morbidelli tries to get the switch back, but the circuit continues to snake its way up the hill here, so Morbidelli's on the wrong side going through turn 4. Oriola's car does not look good, and look, even the drive off the corner, Morbidelli's able to go around the outside. Can he keep this? The next corner is a left-hander, so he has got the right part of the circuit, and Aku Pelnin, I think, is going to follow him through. Opens the door nice and wide for Pelnin. A little bit of contact, and Pelnin just needs to help him off, and Oriola goes into the grass and into the gravel and loses another spot as well to David Kajaya. This is not going well at all for Pepe Oriola. I wonder what is wrong with his Seat. I asked him after race 1, because he didn't seem to have any pace, and he simply blamed his racecraft not being able to attack Afanasiev, but that was a straight line, and Afanasiev was able to easily claim the apex of the corner without any defence whatsoever. It put Oriola on the wrong part of the circuit, and again, look how skittish the car is under braking. The rear wheels almost look like they're locking. That opened the door for Morbidelli. Morbidelli helped Pelnin by keeping the door ajar, and then Pelnin disposed of Oriola on the exit of the turn. So we've lost Heisemans, we've lost Borkovic. 15 runners still remain. Nash, Kamini, Vernet, Afanasiev, Morbidelli, Pelnin, Kajaya, Oriola, Homla and Grashev are your point scorers. Grashev ahead of Tassi. Kevin Gleeson will be wanting to get into the points. He's still running in his highest position this season. And he's under attack from Francisco Mora, who picked up 1 point for 10th position in race 1 in his first outing in TCR this season. We saw him complete 3 races last season, Portugal and 1 other, but he didn't complete the 4th race. I think that was Macau, actually. He was caught up in that horrific accident at the start of race 2. So just watching all the cars come through then. Oriola under braking again. That rear end does not look happy. He's got a very, very oversteer car on the entrance to corners. And he's going backwards even further. Now Mato Homla looks to the inside at the chicane 9 and 10. Can't find a way through. Homla, pole position yesterday, found an absolutely amazing pace in his Seat. He was even a little surprised about the pace. It was a 48.5 he did, and the times we're doing now, best lap times, 49.5, so a second off that. See what Homla can do. He was very strong also down the start-finish straight. His teammate Dorsan Borkovic looks on and sees his championship position plummeting. Oriola to the inside, Homla to the outside. Then under braking, look at how the rear of the car is stepping out under braking for Oriola. Does not look comfortable whatsoever. I'm not quite sure it looks very right either. I mean, I know that you want the car to sit on the nose, to turn in, to have a very loose turn in, so you're not sort of dragging the nose of the car through the exit of the turn. But Oriola's looks like it's basically just on 2 wheels, with the rear wheels having no contact with the ground at all. Doesn't look fun to drive, and his pace is proving that he's not very comfortable. Homla looks to the inside, no space there. Wasn't very robust in his attack or even defence in race 1. Was very respectful of other competitors, which is all well and good, but if you prove that you're a respectful chap, then there are certain drivers in this TCR field who will take advantage of that respect, and they'll bully you off the circuit. So Mato Homla needs to establish himself as a bit more of a bruiser. New to this series this year, having runner-up in the ETCC last year. Here's Kevin Gleeson having a look at the inside of Attila Tassi. Tassi finding his racing feet after not racing in Bahrain. Kevin Gleeson hardly raced in Bahrain. He did complete the races, but outside the points. And he's kind of having to defend as well, isn't he, from Francisco Mora. Great to see that Subaru in the pace of the rest of the cars. It's keeping up, and as long as it doesn't self-combust like it did in race 1, then it should be on for a decent finish here, and it'd be nice to prove its worth. It actually did pick up some points in the hands of Luis Ferreira in Bahrain. Best result, 8th spot. And that was its best result throughout the year from Singapore. Here comes Mato Homola down the inside of Oriola. Oriola still struggling with braking. Homola claims the apex, but will there be a switch back from Oriola? He hasn't got that much good drive out the turns. I wonder whether he doesn't have the tyres here. I wonder whether he was one of the guys that did the most amount of laps in free practice 2. They only had 12 new tyres to play with for the full weekend. And I wonder whether the tyres that he's got on there are just nowhere near what they need to be. And with the increase in track temperature, I mean, he's seriously struggling. The car, he's not even been able to lean on the car. Oriola, our championship leader, is down to 9th spot. Some solitary points. Meanwhile, his championship challenger coming into the weekend, Nash, is checking out of the front. He's got a 2.8 second advantage. He's fractionally faster than the Volkswagens behind. And he's only 10 kilos lighter than Oriola. I mean, Morbidelli in 5th position. I think this will give James Nash the championship lead going to Spa-Francorchamps in a couple of weekends' time. Halfway through the race. Still more to come from this because these Michelin tyres are being managed every single corner of every lap. Stefano Camini on our Facebook Live preview show was very vocal about having to be careful about keeping the tyres in a good condition so you could attack at the end. Morbidelli here, sizing up Sergei Afanasiev. He's dropped Aku Penelin behind him. Penelin is coming over the line now, some 3.9 seconds back. So Penelin hasn't got the pace of the front 5, whereas Morbidelli, winner of race 1, will want to be the most successful driver leaving Estoril. And I suppose with Comini and Vernet in 2nd and 3rd, there's a possibility that they will kind of equal points with Morbidelli when they leave here. Great weekend for the Leopard Racing guys, run by WRT, who have so many credits to their name in GT racing. 24-hour races, the world over they have taken victory, but this is their first foray into front-wheel drive racing. The sponsor, Leopard Racing, a natural energy drink from Luxembourg. The team is entered under Luxembourg rather than under Belgium, where WRT are based, but we go to their home circuit next in Spa, and they will be reveling that because they'll have all sorts of little secrets that they know from. They even run Fun Cup cars. They are a endurance team specialist. And having a lovely weekend in the sun here. Francisco Mora being put on the wrong part of the circuit there by Attila Tassi, as Attila tries to defend his 11th position. Just out the points. Oh, and there's not much of a gap there for Francisco Mora, but Tassi kind of got frightened away by that. Now the switchback move down the inside through 11. He can stay side by side through 12, which is this left-hander. Then he's got the inside line. In fact, he completes the move even before he gets to that point. Through the final turn then, and Tassi is now 11th. Mora is now 11th. Tassi down to 12th, and Gleeson in 13th, having a good watch of this. Gleeson, winner last year, the pole man of the very first TCR race, and he is struggling at the moment. Flashing lights from Sergei Afanasiev. Has Jean-Carl Vernet asked too much of his tyres? 6 laps remaining, still plenty to go. These guys really look like they're on the edge, really sliding around. And they've taken a big old chunk out of Vernet. I don't know where his mistake was. It must have been in the last lap. But now we have a 3-way battle for 3rd position. Jean-Carl Vernet in the Leopard Racing, WRT run Volkswagen. Behind him, Sergei Afanasiev in the Seat. And then Gianni Morbidelli in the West Coast Racing Honda. This could get fruity. Vinay trying to make that as wide as possible, getting a nice run through 8 into 9 and 10, which is this chicane. Now, Gianni Morbidelli complained after race 1 about the speed down the straight. Mato Homola was able to extend an advantage as they came through this turn. Oh, the Subaru is either pulled off or has spun off. Are the wheels able to turn? Yes, they are. So maybe that was a mistake from Luca Rangoni. He heads back underway again. See what happens. Well, brakes worked at the end there, didn't they? Maybe a slight understeer moment onto the grass and then no grip whatsoever. Vinay goes defensive on Sergei Afanasiev. Is there a switchback opportunity for the Russian? For the moment, but it compromises speed, and Gianni Morbidelli looks down the inside through turn 3 and makes the move stick. All because Afanasiev compromised himself by attacking Jean-Carl Vinay, and now he's lost 4th position. This is swung in the favour of the Honda driver now. Points-wise, he will be the most successful leaving here. And no doubt he'll start to attack Jean-Carl Vinay. This is how he did it. Afanasiev ran a little bit wide, and it was easy to do, completing the move into turn 3. And there was no response from Afanasiev into 4. Give it a couple of laps, give it a couple of corners, and it's going to concertina right back up again, because the cork in the bottle is Jean-Carl Vinay. He is the man lapping a little bit slower. He's 4/10 off Camini last time through. Camini 8/10 off James Nash, who is scampering away. He's got a 4.2 second gap now. 5 laps remaining. Gianni gets a nice run through that final turn onto the back of Jean-Carl Vinay. Now we can compare the power of the Volkswagen versus the Honda. Jean-Carl Vinay goes a little bit defensive. This is where Sergei needs to pounce. Closes the door on Morbidelli, who has to dip onto the curb to make enough racing room for him. But again, gets good drive out of that first turn, through the kink into 2. Francisco Mora on Pepe Oriola. Oh, and Oriola nowhere near the apex. Gave it a lot of room. Mora moves up to 9th. Oriola down to 10th, and we're going to see Pepe drop out of the points here. I think we may do. Attention back on 3rd position. Gianni Morbidelli is very, very close to Jean-Carl Vinay. 2nd weekend in front-wheel drive racing for Jean-Carl Vinay. Morbidelli dives to the inside, but he's not late enough under brakes. The cars look so nervous when you're under brakes. Maybe there's a little bit of a gap going through the long turn 6. Doesn't look like there is, though. Now the circuit dives downhill into 7. A double right-hander with 8 as well before the chicane. And Morbidelli will be now focusing on that exit onto the main straight and into the slipstream. Sergei Afanasiev needs to have his wits about him. He can take advantage here. A bit of understeer out of turn 10, out of the chicane. The car, the front end just washing out. And the Honda just looks so much more attached to the apex of the turns. They've really done a good job with those front tyres. And again, he's right in the slipstream, probably a car's width between the two of them. Vinay's going to have to defend. He's got a flappy floor, which isn't going to be helping him either. He's kind of half defending. He's not really sure where to go. Now he switches back onto the racing line. And again, no space for Gianni Morbidelli. He's suffering exactly the same as he did in race 1 on that straight. He does not have the power of the Volkswagen or of the Seat. But saying that, Sergei Afanasiev got no closer to him, did he? Mikhail Grajov under pressure from Kevin Gleeson for 11th position. They're reeling in Pepe Oriola, so they may well be aiming for a point-scoring finish here. Nowhere near as good as Grashov's starring roles last year, a couple of podiums. And I wonder where Jean-Carl Vernet's floor was damaged, because you can see from that front shot that it's flapping around. I think it might be the back bumper. And we saw in Bahrain, he went over a curb in turn 3 and effectively ripped the rear bumper off himself. And I wonder whether this similar thing is happening here, where there's kind of a flat plane that's scooping up the air, and that air is then pulling the rear bumper off. Here comes Gianni Morbidelli down the inside into chicane. They're side by side. Vernet holds the inside line for the second part of the chicane and then forces him wide. Nice defensive move, nice clean racing between the two of these. Oh, Morbidelli has the inside line for a 12 though, and makes the move stick before the last turn. Vernet thinks he might have found a little bit of a hole down the inside of the last turn, but it's not advisable. How much of a front end has he still got in this car with 3 laps remaining? Whatever it is, he's given the advantage of Sergei Afanasiev, who's right in the slipstream. Nothing between the two of them as they come across the start and finishing line. Afanasiev moves early down the inside, and surely we have to claim the corner here. Brakes late, has the inside a little bit of a lock-up, but he's already down the inside and claims the apex and moves up into 4th position then. A small mistake from Jean-Carl Vernet costs him 2 spots. And Morbidelli is onto the podium once again. Here is that move. It wasn't quite in front, and that allowed Jean-Carl Vernet to kind of turn into him. A very inviting flat curb in front of them. And Vernet ditch hooks down the inside, but he just needed to be a little bit more forceful on the exit there to kind of shut the door on Morbidelli and stop this move from happening. Because he gave him the space. And applause from West Coast and a big smile from Gregor Peterson, the team owner. Here is Afanasiev down the inside, little lock up, but by that point he's so far ahead that Jean-Carl Vernet can't turn in. Oh, and the Subaru's come off again at the same turn as it has done previously. Now that is, I think, the exit, isn't it, of turn 10. So same place he's had issues with all day. No, it's turn 7 in fact, so a few corners earlier. But that was where he had the mistake earlier on that we saw, and Luca Rangoni is going to finish this race 15th as a retirement. Again, Ceruti is still going in the little Alfa Romeo. She's 3.5 seconds off Attila Tassi, who's 13th. Yeah, and they really need to do something with that flappy floor, don't they? Because if that catches on a curb, it's going to ping up and it's going to rip the rear bumper off, and Jean-Carl Vernet is not being very happy that his car is able to self-combust in that kind of way. We saw that flapping floor in race 1. He's done the same thing again, and he had problems with it in Bahrain. Here's Kevin Gleeson looking down the inside of Mikhail Grashov. That's for 11th spot, so no point scoring for them yet. They still need to work on Pepe Oriola ahead, but Oriola's pace has kind of stabilised now. There's a 1.2 second gap between Oriola and Grashov. I don't think that these guys have got the pace to hunt Oriola down in the remaining laps, especially as Grashov is really having to concentrate on his mirrors at the moment from Kevin Gleeson all over the road trying to find a way past. But we've seen Grashov is very forceful in his defence in Bahrain. David Kajaya having a bit of a lonely one in 7th position. Aku Pellenin just ahead of him in 6th, but 2 seconds the gap between them, with Mato Homola just behind. Francisco Mora, by the way, managed to do his fastest lap on lap 10, so just a couple of laps ago, which is against the norm for for TCR, because the tyres do have a little bit of a step after a couple of laps where they do go off. So he didn't manage to maximise his tyres in the first few laps of the race. Most of the other fastest laps are done in between laps, sort of 2 to 4. Gleeson looks up the inside of Grashev again. Grashov defends though through 9 and 10. Gleason's going to have to use all his brain power to kind of trick Grashov into a mistake. It's been a lonely race for James Nash. 2.8 is the gap to Stefano Camini. And then Morbidelli 4.4 back, who stretched a 2-second advantage over Sergei Afanasiev. Jean-Carl Vernet is behind him, but I don't think he has the pace to challenge. Vernet still with some learning to do about preserving those front tyres, especially in conditions like this. Oh, it just looks horrible. When you get it wrong, you can see the steering lock being bunged onto that Leopard racing car, and it just would not turn where he wanted it to go. James Nash then came into the weekend second in the championship. Didn't have a good qualifying session, could only qualify himself in 9th, but it put him on the front row of the grid for race 2. A solid start, a safe start, and then with all the fighting behind, he's managed to just eke an advantage every single lap. Consistency, the key, and Nasha is the master of a measured drive, and this is exactly what it's been. He hasn't need to push, he hadn't need to attack, but he's done exactly what he needed to do. With terms of performance of those tyres, he's still got pace in the car, and he's going to come away from this weekend, I think, pretty close to the championship lead. It might well be 1 point off Gianni Morbidelli, but either way, it's the first win for James Nash in the TCR International Series. The lights flash, 2 podiums in Bahrain, and then a win here in Estoril. Stefano Camini comes over the line in second. 2 podiums for him this weekend, 2 podiums for Morbidelli as well this weekend in the Honda. A Seat, a Honda, and a Volkswagen on the podium. Does not get better than that. Great action all the way down the field. Pepe Oriola does claim 1 point, but will lose his championship lead quite considerably as he comes over the line 32 seconds behind his teammate, holding off Grashov and Gleason. And pats on the back from the Leopold Racing team. Not quite as successful as race 1, a double podium in race 1, but they're still going to have to be happy with Stefano Camini's performance. 3rd in race 1, a 2nd in race 2, and taking away a good haul of points. Nash up with his parents here this weekend and girlfriend as well, enjoying the Estoril atmosphere, the beachside resort and the sun, and doing what matters on track. Didn't do any running in free practice 2, hardly any running in free practice 1, but it's all come good in the end for James, and he will be on the top step of our podium. That 30 kilo weight break for the Volkswagen seems to have done the trick in terms of balance of performance. Stefano Camini and Jean-Carl Vernet very much in the mix this weekend. WRT, remember, of course, still learning this car, still learning the art of setting up a front-wheel drive car, so different to what they're used to with a rear-wheel drive machinery and GT cars. And applause from the marshals as the cars make their way round to our interviews and then to the podium. Picking up some discarded rubber on the exit corners to raise the car's ride height as much as possible, just in case. Of course, the cars are intended to go out on track with the legal setup, but any bit of extra height will do. So they'll go and pick up those marbles you can see on the outside of the turns. That's why they drive on the outside of corners. And a nice busy pit lane for James Nash to arrive into with his Craft Bamboo Lukoil team awaiting him. He took the independent World Touring Car victory a few years ago with that same team, got invited back into the team this year, and he's delivered with a victory. Yes, James punches the air in delight. And the car also completely spotless because he didn't make any contact with anybody. The engineers will be happy about that. There is Stefano Camini, gives us a good wave. And James Nash celebrates, yes. Hugs for the team, hugs for the girlfriend, hugs for the dad, and hugs for Dickie Coleman, the boss. All these teams pretty small in comparison to what you'd expect to see in things like Formula One, and therefore a close-knit family. James Nixon, the team manager of West Coast Racing, congratulating Gianni Morbidelli. And it's the first win of the season for James Nash. Oriola took the spoils in both races in Bahrain. Gianni Morbidelli took the spoils this morning here in Estoril, and it's James Nash on the podium. So we've had 3 winners in 4 races. Gregor Peterson there on the right-hand side, chatting to Gianni. And a rather disappointed Luca Rangoni in the Subaru. Still work to do, 15th. We should be seeing Luca for the rest of the season. Whether he'll be in the blue colours of Top Run Motorsport or not, we do not know. Trying to have a listen to what Gregor Pedersen was saying to Gianni Morbidelli, but what we can hear is James Nash's feelings about his result.
James Nash, 2 terrific results in Bahrain, but did you think your first win in TCR would come so soon?
Well, before I started Bahrain, you're never sure with the competition and the car. I'm new back to touring cars after a few years break, so it's going to be hard, and the competition is really fierce, so really pleased to have a win. Obviously after the Bahrain result and the extra kilos, it's always going to hurt us this weekend, but the team did a fantastic job in controlling the tyres, controlling me, and not running in FP1 and 2 to save some tyres, which gave us the opportunity to produce this win.
Now, you said you're here to have a tilt at the title. Second now, just a point behind Gianni.
That's good. I mean, it's a long way to go, so not thinking about that really too much. It's all about results, consistent results, and that's what we need to do and achieve, stay out of trouble.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's exactly James Nash's attitude throughout his racing career so far. Staying out of trouble, not getting involved too much in the on-track fighting, and the results come. Nash from Camini, from Morbidelli, the top 3. Sergei Afanasiev missing out on the podium in 4th position. Jean-Carl Venet shuffling down to 5th in the end. Akupelinen having a quiet run to 6th. Kajaya, Homola, Mora fighting up for more points in 9th, and Pepe Oriola taking 1 in 10th. And those guys missing out on the points. Once again, Kevin Gleeson. Dusan Borkovic will be disappointed, as will Loris Heisemans. He'll be wanting more from his return to the TCR International Series. All smiles there at Craft Bamboo. Confirmation of the points. It's a Honda on the top, with Gianni Morbidelli just 1 point ahead of James Nash now. Oriola drops 14 points behind. And Sergei Afanasiev stays there consistently in 4th position. More improvements from the Volkswagens of Camini and Venet. Borkovic drops now to 7th, 43 points off. And he's going to have some serious work to do. Palinin, Homola and Kajaya, your top 10 positions. Kevin Gleeson will not be happy with the look of that driver's standings. He's got a good car underneath him. He's got a great team running him. He's got teammates that are doing the business, and he cannot get a point as yet. Chat between Andrew Clipson and James Nash, team manager. And you can see how much it means to him on his face. He is loving this feeling. Been a quiet year for James last year in the Blancpain series. He was on podiums, but not on the top step. And difficult to be on the podiums when you're an independent in a championship and you're in a different class. But he is the outright winner here in TCR in Estoril. Jumps for joy, punches the air in delight. And here's the national anthem. The British national anthem rings out over Estoril. James Nash taking a quick glance at the Union Jack flying above him. And the trophy presented by the CMO of the Estoril circuit. A beautiful show that they've put on for us here. Great to come back to Estoril and feel those legends and legendary races that have gone before here. They've had single-seater racing, they've had GT racing, they've had classic racing, and they've had amazing touring car racing, thanks to the TCR International Series. Great weekend for Gianni Morbidelli. He'll be turning up to Spa in a couple of weekends' time with a big smile. He's been on the podium there. He's been successfully racing in Formula throughout his rather long career. And he'll be very positive about racing in Spa. In a couple of weekends' time, we go alongside the WEC Series, the World Endurance Championship. TCR will race on the Friday evening and the Saturday morning. Champagne sprays on the podium here in Estoril. Wonderful sights, wonderful racing. I cannot wait to bring you more action from the TCR International Series in a couple of weeks' time. Your victors, Gianni Morbidelli, James Nash in race 2. And it is Gianni Morbidelli and James Nash who are almost equal on points as they leave here and head to Spa. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.